Hello, everyone, and welcome to one more Logic Apps Live, May 2024. Seems like the year is flying. So we have in the meeting Parth, Alex, Kent, that is on producer duty hiding behind the scenes, and Divya. So let's go and talk a little bit about the agenda that we have for today. So today, as now it's a tradition, we're going to highlight a little bit about the ACE Aviator of the month. So Alex is going to be talking a little bit about who is the ACE Aviator for the month of May. We're going to talk about some of the upcoming events, and both from us and from the community. And then from technical updates, we're going to talk a little bit about how to use the new auto-generated deployment scripts and extend that to use custom code. We're going to be talking a little bit about some data mapper improvements that are coming, and you have the opportunity to enroll for private preview on that, and talk about the generative AI. If I'm not wrong, Part, you're going to be talking about data mapper and some of the other goodies there. And then Divya, you're going to be showing some of our latest on the generative AI, right? As usual, feel free to put questions on the chat, and you're going to be try to answer that at the end of each one of those chapters, or as soon as you can. So let's start with the ACE Aviator of the month. Alex, all yours.
Great. Thanks, Wagner. And hi, everyone. Hopefully you guys have had either a good start to your day or a good end to it. This month's ACE Aviator is Derek Marley. Derek Marley is Integrations Principal Specialist for Horton Cloud. And his piece is going to be up on the May ACE Aviator link, so that'll be up above at ak.ms/logapps/aviators/May 24. It's like the same link as always, but just a little bit about Derek, just so you guys can get an enticement to go read his piece because it's really awesome. One of Derek's tips from his interview that we asked him a couple questions was to stay flexible and be willing to embrace new ideas. And part of that kind of ties into one of the other topics that Derek brings up in his interview that we chatted with him about. And one of the quotes pulled from that is, one of the things that really caught me off guard in my career, and that became an important learning lesson occurred recently, is how quickly AI and co-pilots have become super relevant and incredibly important to all companies. Derek has some great insight on AI and some other comments that are definitely worth the read. So go check out this month's newsletter and make sure to keep posting your own content to the hashtag LogicAppsAviators so you can be the next ACE Aviator. And thank you, Derek, for all your hard work in the community. And with that, I'll pass.
Oh, hi. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about some upcoming community events. So there's a lot happening here in the month of June, so we're pretty excited about it. So first off, we got the Azure and Integration Congress. This is happening Tuesday, June 4th in the Netherlands. And we're going to have Slava, who leads Logic Apps and Azure Integration Services, there to do the keynote. So if this is something that you are interested in attending, there's the link right there, azure-integration.nl. And feel free to go ahead and register for this event. And then, next up, we've got Integrate 2024. And so even though we're going to talk about a lot of new things here today, and some of these things were announced this past week at Build, we are holding a few things back. So you're definitely also going to learn a bunch of new things at Integrate as well. And so there still are some early bird tickets that are available. They are going fast. So if you do want to take advantage of some savings, go ahead and check it out. It will be 2 days. It's going to take place in London on June 10th and 11th. There also are some remote tickets available as well. And here you're going to hear about, obviously, Logic Apps, but there's some exciting stuff that's happening in the world of API management, API Center, and also Azure messaging as well. So you'll see representation from those teams, and definitely looking forward to seeing you all there. I think there's some lag going on. Okay, so another event that is taking place that same week in June, this happens to be on Thursday, June 13th. This is going to take place in Germany, more specifically Hamburg, Germany. And this is the launch of the Aviators Germany community. And so special thanks to Cubic, who is hosting this particular meetup. I will be there, and also our friend Sandro Pereira will also be there. And it's about a 5-hour event. We're going to have a Q&A panel, and there'll be lots of chances for discussion. And I believe there's a football tournament that's occurring around this time. So I would imagine there will be a lot of banter going back and forth between Sandro and the other football fans that are taking place. I'll be neutral, but yeah, looking forward to spending some time in Germany and launching this particular community with the Cubic folks. Then I think we've got one more, if I'm not mistaken here. All right, so this is pretty exciting. We've done this in the past, and we are going to be doing it again because we had so much fun doing it. So this is going to be Logic Apps Community Day. This will take place on September 26th, so after the summer break. And this is an opportunity for community speakers to get involved and participate. So we'll run a program similar to last time, where we will be asking for a call for speakers. So you can go ahead and fill out this form, this URL here, and submit your topics. And we're looking for a variety of different speakers and different levels. So don't feel like any topic won't be applicable. Go ahead and send them across. And we're certainly excited to host another one of these days, bring the community together, give an opportunity for people who may not have spoken before or could be seasoned speakers, but really the opportunity to bring this community together and learn from each other. So go ahead, fill out the call for speakers, and feel free to block that in your calendar, and we'll have more details in upcoming sessions. Wagner,
and one thing on that one is, as you're saying, we're looking for both breakout and lightning sessions. So doesn't matter if you're a seasoned speaker or like someone just starting, or you're just thinking that you have like a really nice tip to share, submit it. We wanted to get that quite varied.
Absolutely.
Cool. And I just realized that I was talking and with you, but I was not on stage. That's why you're not hearing me talk.
That's exactly, yeah, that would be why.
Right. So let's continue here, and the next thing on our agenda is talking a little bit about the Logic Apps auto generation of deployment scripts. That is something that we just put it in public preview late last month, if I'm not wrong. Right? It's like we've been doing a lot of other announcements, so I can remember if it was last month, but it's relatively new. And on that one of the things that we're trying to do with that auto generation of deployment scripts is allow you to generate the ARM templates for infrastructure, and that supports like both your Logic Apps managed connectors, your Logic Apps and dependencies ARM templates, but also your Azure DevOps pipelines for infrastructure, CI and CD, and uses a new set of Logic Apps standard tasks for Azure DevOps, right? So this is available today. You should be able to go and create new project work, a new Logic Apps workspace, start using that. We're going to be talking a little bit more on how to bring the existing projects into that folder in future events. But one of the limitations that we have on this that is today just as a public preview is that current implementation doesn't take custom code in consideration. So on the first click stop, if you have a project with a Logic Apps and a function, it's still going to generate those templates, but it's not going to generate the templates for the custom code, right? We're planning to support that on the generation before it goes GA, but you still should be able to take advantage of that by simply doing a quick trick. You see that here the pipeline that we have only have one task, and that task is the new Logic Apps standard build, right? Doing some investigation and playing with that a little bit, I find out that if you wanted to add support for custom code, that's going to be as simple as adding a .NET Core task in the same job that is going to be using the build command for the projects that are on that on that space, right? And choosing your build configuration of a choice, debug or release. The way that task works and the way that we work with that today is after we build the task, after we build the project, we in place a set of things that goes to the binaries, which is the custom code DLLs and the metadata required into the Logic Apps library folder. And all the details on how to do that is already on the C# project available, right? So the only thing that we needed to do is add a task, create some pipelines, variables to support what you needed to do there, and it's going to be working. So with that, let me show an example of something that I did here. I'm not going to be running the pipeline just because of time, right? We have other things to add here. But here is a project where I had a function. Just let me close this bit. I had a function and I had a logic app, right? As I said before, when you're looking at this C# project, one of the things that it does is like move the files that it finished building into the Logic Apps folder libs custom.
Hey Wagner,
so
can you zoom in a little bit? Yeah, yes, please. Thank you.
Control plus. One more?
Sure, one more. Thanks.
There you go. And let me close that, because then that should give us a bit more space. Yeah, so as you're saying, it's like, and you know that even more than me, Ken, so you've been playing with that. So one of the actions inside the CS project is already how to copy all of that, right? And it copies the things for the right folder. And so because of that, you don't have to worry about build and move. You just needed to make sure that you have the .NET process to build. So what I did with this project is, after I use the generate deployment scripts to generate that set of scripts that it came out of the box, right? Which is like the infrastructure, the pipelines, and the workflow parameters. I went and extended that CI pipeline to add another task. And that task was just like a basic .NET Core CLI version 2, which is a task that is available on Azure DevOps. The result of that is that now when I push that to source control and run my pipeline, this is what we got. So here is an example of the pipeline that was running. So it it runs the project. Just let me show show the whole thing. It did like a build. Then after that, the normal Logic Apps standard zip. You can even see here that when it's copying all the Logic Apps standard things to the zip, you had all the bits that are related to that are related to the custom code, now part of that path, and because of that is built. And if you look at the artifact that is being produced, just open that one super quick. It's an old one. So I'm not going to be able to show you that, sorry. But if you open that zip, you're going to see that inside that, now you have the library and the metadata. And this is the only thing that is required for custom code for you to publish that on, to Azure, right? So by simply adding one extra task inside your pipeline, you'll be able to now take advantage not just from Logic Apps projects, but also Logic Apps with custom code projects. In the future, we'll not even be needed to do that because one of our next steps is enhancing the wizard to identify if you have a functions, and if so, make sure that we include that as well. So, is any questions from the audience, Kent?
Not at this point, but yeah, folks, feel free to log any questions, and we'll get to them throughout the session here.
Okay. So I think that's it from me. Next one, it would be data map improvements with Path. Path, you wanted to share your whole screen?
Yes. I'm sharing. Would you be able to?
Exactly.
Yes,
I'll just move it to your one. There
awesome.
All yours.
Thanks, Wagner. All right. Hey, everyone. So I had a few things to present today, but firstly, we'll go over Data Mapper. And most of you may have checked out, like we did release a blog earlier this week on the updates that we're planning in the Data Mapper. But just before we go to that and check out the updates, I wanted to just give a quick, overview of why we're even doing this, right? So in the first place, when we GA Data Mapper in November last year, we heard that a lot of the user interactions in the mapper are being a little tedious and kind of janky to play around with when you're building the map, configuring the map, and even testing it out, right? So we wanted to sort of improve that process and make sure that the whole user interaction is at least up to par and provide like all the capabilities that our competitors provide, at least in terms of user interaction, so you can build these reliable data maps, right? So when you look at it, these improvements are divided into three main categories. The first is just to streamline the data mapping process, right? In terms of how the mapping works, the filtering of the fields, and all those things. The improved functions experience, so being able to manage the functions that you're using the most easily, able to view the functions that you've added together for just a single mapping, and be able to visualize, right, and just handle all of that easily, right? So you want to make sure that not just the data mapping is taken care of, functions are easily inserted into the mapper, but also the troubleshooting piece of it, in which you want to test out the mapper that it's producing the right output based on a particular schema in the input, right, from the source. So let's take a look and a few GIFs, maybe. It would be awesome to get your feedback there. And what we're really looking for from your side is, if you want to participate in private preview, do fill out the form that is in the particular blog post that I'll share. But also let us know, more importantly, what do you want to see us invest in the future for Data Mapper, right? And are we really addressing the needs that you pointed us out in the first place, right? We think that we are, but we want to hear from you and make sure that we really are. So taking a look at the particular post, we have a few improvements. The first is just directly in terms of the creating the data map. So as you can see, you can simply select the source or the destination schema. They're dogged on the left and right side. There is no more floating. So you'll be able to have certainty that, okay, I'm going to map the source and the destination from a certain point in the frame. Once you've uploaded it, if you want to map a single property, it's a little more intuitive. You'll be able to sort of visualize where you're mapping with that dotted line and be able to simply map to the particular field. If you can see, like, it's just a lot cleaner in terms of indentation as well. Small things, but do make a difference, right? Understanding a property type. So this is a paper cut that I feel like was there before, wherein like the property types were sort of indented and were difficult to understand. Now you'll simply hover over it and you'll be able to just figure out what you're working with, and be the same for basically all data types, right? Adding functions. So this is a fairly easy one. So you can simply drag and drop the function from the left-hand panel and connect to whichever fields you want. What's more interesting is when you have a lot of functions and it becomes really difficult to handle the map. And that is something that we want to address, right? Like, because these maps are not just used for simple schemas, but they are complex schemas with API payloads with hundreds, 200 fields, right? And you want to be able to manage that, right? So how do you look at that functions? Like if you're mapping it, this is sort of how it will be visualized. Like you have this collapsible view of the functions in a particular mapping, and you'll simply be able to like check out the details of the particular function, right? There are new things here that you can see about renaming the function and also providing some details on your side, because there could be, right, hundreds of concatenation functions or other ones, but we want to make sure that you can rename them, or you can even like give some more description to the particular function for what it is doing for the particular fields, and define the logic in that mapping, right? Reordering source properties. So this is when you are able to, let's say, concatenate, right? Another easy example using concatenation here. Concatenate two particular fields. You can simply reorder them. So if you want to have line number come before the part number, you can simply do that. And you can also add static values. If you can see in this add source, you can even add other values that you have, you want to concatenate, things like that, right? Expanding and collapsing the hierarchy. So this is really important when you have nested schemas, and in most of the cases we have seen that, because yeah, like when you have 3 to 4 levels, you want to be able to easily like visualize this, right? So there's that. You can see in both the source and destination there. And let me know, right, as we're doing this, please let us know if there are any things you want to see. The side panel, it was quite difficult for developers to visualize all the fields when it's nested and the side panel wouldn't resize. And now we're giving the capability to just simply drag and drop and resize the panel. Searching within schema. This is also an important one. When you have a lot of fields, you want to map only a particular one. You can simply select the particular field by searching for it and focusing on the mapping. While we're on this subject, I also wanted to mention something that is not in this blog post, is when you want to only focus on some parts of some part of the mapper, right? So you want to only focus on 6 or 7 fields of the mapping because you only want to focus on the shipping, right? Like logic, mapping the shipping fields. So we are planning to give you the capability to create and manage sections. It's something that we're working on right now alongside looping as well as conditional mapping. So you'll see the updates there for sure very soon. Favoriting function. So this is a very, very important feature. So you can only visualize the functions you work with the most on the left-hand side on the top. They'll be pinned, so you can simply work with them whenever you need to, right? So yeah, you can also hide other functions, so it's not kind of bothering you in visually when you're creating the mapping. Viewing the underlying code in read-only mode, right? So you can simply check out the code there, perform the mappings visually. Testing, more important feature, where you can select already defined payload, and once you upload your particular payload, like with some fields, like static fields, it will actually parse the data mapper and debug it to get the right output to the destination. And if it isn't, you'll be able to see an error on the right-hand side top. So you should be able to debug that there as well. And that's about it, right? So this is the questionnaire that we would love for you to fill out. So please give some time and let us know what you think about these updates. Are they really addressing it on a scale of 1 to 5? Or if they're not, let us know what we're missing out. We want to make sure that this release that is planned for this summer is like definitely better than the last one, but is also addressing a lot of these needs that were there in the first place, right? And there's also a question around what you want us to invest in next in the questionnaire. So please let us know, right, if there are any areas you want us to invest in next in the mapper. So that's all I had from the data mapper side. Let's continue on to the next piece really quick. There's a little bit of lag on my side as well. Okay, yep. I think folks can see my screen. So this is the first piece of generative AI update that just came out 2 days ago. So we have been working with semantic kernel for a bit, and we wanted to make sure that developers who are integrating with that SDK can simply plug in logic apps. So what is that, and how does it even look like? Let's sort of dig into that, right? So first of all, for people who are not familiar with semantic kernel, what is it, right? So it's an open source SDK that integrates large language models with traditional languages like C#, Python, and Java, right? So you can use this to build generative AI applications. And then basically, if you're chatting with that application and want a particular type of output, this semantic kernel is really used in that, where it parses the prompt, creates the planner for you, and reroutes to the right API, which will handle the request, right? So I mean, while I'm describing it, it's pretty clear that not everything can be in traditional programming languages, right? As we modernize these applications, and as we think of integration as a business that can is not just integrating data but also performing actions, things become very difficult when you're integrating third-party services and databases where your data is located, and you also want to use that data, manipulate it, and actually perform actions on it, right? You really cannot write code for everything, right? It becomes cumbersome, especially when you have that, and accessing and managing all of that becomes quite a hassle. And similarly, you want to perform those actions, right, on real-time events. So if you're seeing an email arriving in your inbox about a ticket, you want to be able to take an action on it and respond to it right away to guarantee good SLA. So how do we solve that, right? And I think this is where the plugin story with semantic kernel comes in quite handy. So you don't quite need to codefully author all these APIs now. You can simply plug in a logic app standard and the workflows inside of it, right? Which can take the prompt that the user is wanting to ask a question based on and perform a specific action, right? And this will also guarantee that you can easily connect with all of the services given the out-of-the-box connectors, and not having to manually author that and integrate into semantic kernel, right? So what does it look like? There is a blog post that just came out from the semantic kernel team 2 days ago, which I really encourage you guys to check out. And we'll also take a look right now, really quick on that. I have it open. So yeah, as I was mentioning, right? So for the particular, oh, just 1 second. Why is this? Okay. One second, this is just bothering. Yep. So this is the particular blog, right, from the semantic kernel team. As you can see, the plugins traditionally were in C#, Python, and Java. And basically, there's an open API spec that basically takes in any of these particular languages, APIs in these languages, and adds it as a plugin in semantic kernel. Now you have logic apps that you can import as plugins, right? And let's take a look at an example, right? At what does it look like when you're actually integrating with logic apps? So in this case, they're using a GitHub Copilot to manage the repository and be able to answer questions about builds and PRs. So first of all, step one is to create the plugin logic app standard, which would do the actions that you want, right, on GitHub. So as you can see, they've built like these 6 particular actions, or I mean workflows, that will be used as plugins. The first is just searching for code snippets based on the problems, or if you simply just need help coding, right? Second is to just retrieve the file to get the content. The third is to learn about any detailed changes made in your PR. The fourth is to identify any failures in the build. And this one particularly, wherein you're trying to identify failures in your build, is very difficult to write code for, right? But with logic app connectors, you can simply parse the particular PR and simply return any build issues that are there, right? With the connector, so you don't have to write code for it, right? So now, when you actually look at it and you're trying to play around with this Copilot or the semantic kernel application that you just made, you can ask, right? Like, hey, this is my pull request. Can you tell me what's changing? And this assistant will do it for you, right? It will create the planner in the background, reroute this particular request based on a payload, and route it to the right workflow, which will execute and tell you exactly what's going on with your build, right? And you can test this out right now. This is live, so you can definitely test it out. It's a little difficult with the easy auth that I can talk about. But then similarly, like, once it tells you what are the updated files, you can even ask like what is changing in compared to the main branch in mind, right? And then this will tell you like what are the things that are changing, like the validation logic, the values, right? And then you can even compare it with another code, right? Like in this case, there's a .NET implementation that you already implemented. You want to check like how does this compare to your particular build that you've written, right? So it will tell you, right? Like this is what are the similarities, and here are like even the differences if there are any, right? So yeah, I think we would love for you to try this out. Like, right, there's detailed instructions on how you can configure it. You just have to add the metadata endpoints using kudu into the host.json, number one. Number two, you'll have to manually configure easy auth, and that's something that we're working on right now. So you can automate that process, and you don't have to do it all codefully. And then you can simply authorize your logic app to make sure that it accesses the semantic kernel right through just authenticating, right? So you'll add in your client IDs, tenant IDs, and pass it in. Make sure that the user can authenticate, right, to the logic app. So that's basically it. And we would love to hear from you, like what you think of this capability. This is a very pro dev scenario, right? Like semantic kernel is an SDK, so you'll have to use VS Code for it. And so let us know like what you think in this case. But the whole idea is that you don't have to do a lot of magic here. It's just already defined building blocks that we already have in logic apps. You can simply expose as APIs inside of a kernel that would do the tasks for you based on the prompt. So that's on the semantic kernel side. And let's continue going on to the inline code. So this is something that we completely forgot to mention in the agenda, but we have an update on providing developers the extensibility to add code into their workflow, because not everything is visual. So sometimes you need to add the code, and we don't want you to quite do other means to provision that, right? So let's talk about it a little bit, and we can even take a look at a Hello World demo. So why are we doing this, right? I think there's a lack of scripting solution clearly with that. We have JavaScript as one of the key languages, but we've identified that our users are definitely creating functions, playbooks, deploying them to containers, and taking advantage of these capabilities, especially in PowerShell, C#, Python languages, right? We want to basically give them the building blocks inside of logic apps to script and not have to provision anything else, to save cost and effort and management, obviously, right? So management effort. So basically what this will do, this inline code scripting solution, is it will be a file inside of the workflow.json either in CSX format for C# or PS1 format for PowerShell, right? You can simply rename the file as well and for deployment purposes. So it's easy. And we are planning to public preview this in mid-June. C# will be landing first, and then PowerShell followed by a week or two. But this is only for Portal, right? Because currently developers have to provision VS Code and custom code to author C#. We have majority of our users also on Portal authoring workflows, and they don't quite have anything handy. So we want to provide a small scripting solution there. If they want to cater to advanced scenarios, they can simply export the project to VS Code and continue authoring there. But the PowerShell capability is still to be supported on VS Code, right? So that is something that we do need to work on. It's not supported yet. So that's next up. And let's take a look at the demo quick here. So I have a C# workflow, a very basic workflow that is there with just a request and response trigger. You have the boilerplate code in this case, which will just perform a hello world operation. So that comes with the PowerShell action as well, which we'll take a look at. And you can use, right, like these particular parameters for trigger outputs and dynamic content and token picker to access the particular outputs from the previous actions and into this, right? We also have minimal IntelliSense in this, so you can basically author these get workflow actions, get action outputs, get trigger outputs, and all these things. But we don't have advanced IntelliSense to tell you that, hey, you've missed a semicolon. For that, we are going to log all of this into application insights. So you can have like this side-by-side panel view of being able to troubleshoot your script at the same time while you're authoring it, right? So that's something that is also there, and I'll share the screenshots for that offline. But let's take a look, right? So I'm simply going to pass the name because it should basically say hello Parth. And yep. So hello Parth from C# action. And it ran successfully. You'll be able to visualize everything on the run history, right, as you would. Let's take a look at PowerShell really quick. In this case as well, we're providing the boilerplate code that would have all the necessary commands for you to access and use for accessing previous actions, outputs, and things like that. And use push workflow output to like basically, right, like push out the response from the script to be used in actions or downstream. So let's execute this as well, really quick. The scenarios are endless, right? Like you can compress, uncompress a file, zip, unzip a file, make sure that authentication, right, especially a piece for authentication, connect to services, change authentication policies. And a lot of default modules will also be supported. If you want to add your custom modules, you can also do so inside of Kudu and the developer console there. So you can bring in your custom modules and play around with that as well, right? So here's the run history, and I just want to make sure that it gave me the right output. Yep, hello world, which is good to go. But yeah, and we are planning to come up with a list of scenarios as well, so it's easy for you to take the script and simply start running with it. So yeah, I think that's basically all I had from my side, and I'll pass it on to Wagner or Divya. I think that's all. Thank you.
Let me add Divya's screen, and then you're good to go, Divya. Oh, I think I'm fighting with Kent. Sorry, Kent.
All right, thank you, Wagner. I think I'll jump directly to the demo only, given we have limited time. But I just want to extend to what Parth demoed earlier today about the integration of logic apps with semantic kernel and being able to leverage your existing workflows as plugins. So our goal is to basically allow developers across the spectrum to build more complex, stateful Copilot-like applications. And semantic kernel is where you can use your code-first approach and code-first tools and technologies. But then we also want to provide similar capabilities using low-code tools and capabilities. And that's where our collaboration with Azure OpenAI team, specifically with Assistants team, comes into play. So what OpenAI Assistants provides you is an ability to create a Copilot-like application using this visual interface. in a way that those interactions can be stateful, and you can leverage a bunch of more complex capabilities such as code interpreter to invoke any code, as well as bring your own files. Today specifically we are going to talk about functions, being able to call functions from Assistant Studio. And this is not Azure Functions, just to clarify. This is basically an ability to bring any custom API into Assistants and leverage it. So what you have, I think before I get into the demo for the functions, let me just ask a question here to your assistant on the weather. And yeah, and as you would see that you would not be able to get a response for this question, because we should get a response that indicates that. So, running slower. I think we have some network issues going on at the moment. So hopefully this will work, but let's give it a couple of seconds. Okay, I'm going to stop this and refresh my page and give it a try one more time. Going to turn off my video actually, in case that helps. All right, so let's give it a try again here and send a question. All right, yeah, so you based on the because it's real-time data. Now you could go ahead and bring in your own custom API in AI Studio, and in order to do that you have to follow a certain number of steps. For example, you have to provide your function specification, and then based on that your specification and description, the AI Studio may attempt to invoke that. If let's give this a try with one of the out-of-box functions to include the weather. If we do this, up until now we have not used logic apps here, but when I do that and ask the same question, now the AI Studio will try to invoke your custom API. So while it is loading, what you will notice is that it will show you what API it's going to invoke, but it doesn't have the ability to invoke that API because it's a custom API. With now let's jump into what we've done with logic apps. So with logic apps, you would now be able to leverage any of your existing workflows and import them into AI Studio. And when you do that, the AI Studio will just showing you that all of that will happen for you in that process. So let's try another workflow here, which is again doing similar work and save it. So when I do that, as you can see now in this case, the function specification was automatically created for this API. And now if I am going to, I'll delete this, save here. I think due to some network lags, we are getting these errors, but let's give it a try again and see if this successfully invokes the workflow. So now what I'm expecting and what should happen is that the AI Studio should not just discover this function, but also be able to successfully invoke this function and return back workflow requirements for it to be eligible so that it can be invoked. It can be discovered and invoked in AI Studio is that it needs to have a request trigger, because what the AI Studio is calling is a REST endpoint. So your workflow needs to have a REST endpoint, which you get through request trigger. It also needs to return a response successfully, and if not, what were the failure? What was the reason of the failure? Yeah, okay. All right, I'm going to jump to my second part of my demo because, and we'll see if that works. The problem that I think we are running into is that that due to network delays, these requests are taking too long, and therefore the timeouts are happening. So I'm again going to give another try and see if things work. So in this case, before I give the prompt, this is another example where now I have imported a couple of workflows that I had created. So this is my workflow that is basically sending a query to SQL and gets back some data from the SQL. And so this is a workflow that does the SQL call, and that it doesn't take any input parameters, but only returns the response. The second one I have, using AI Studio, you can do bidirectional data transfer and bidirectional integration. So this is an example where I'm sending a content and I want to post it to my Teams channel. So this is a workflow that takes a single parameter and has a single action, which is to post message to Teams channel. And then I have a third workflow, which actually takes two parameters. So it is a workflow to order inventory items, and it takes in the item to order and its quantity. So the AI Studio is smart enough based on the prompt that it will be able to identify both the quantity and the items and map the values to these arguments as expected. And for all of these, it should be able to invoke them. Let's give it a try if this works. So while it's generating the response, for getting the sales data, it should be invoking the get data workflow here. And this is what my get data workflow is. Sorry. So this is the one that was that executes the SQL query. And I want to see the run history to just show. So this was the work. Refresh. All right, let's see. I don't know if it's calling. I think the demo gods are not with me today. So I think there is something going on because of which the requests are not getting through. But given the interest of time, I think we plan to record these demos and share with you. But I think you get the idea that as you provide different prompts here, your workflows will be invoked automatically through the function calling feature of AI Studio, AI Assistant Studio. And you should be able to get the data and then ask questions on top of this data. So what I was going to show you was how you can generate insights on all of the data that is returned, how you can ask targeted questions, right? Like which album was most popular, which album had most sales, and then finally being able to send message to teams again through a very natural prompt and do more and order items. So my apologies, unfortunately we have something going on here. This is test environment, so there are constant deployments also happening. In terms of availability, this is something that will be available by May 30th. So you should be able to try these features yourself by May 30th. We do have the documentation already published for this, and you can learn more about this feature as well as everything about assistants and Azure OpenAI Studio. There is like tons of documentation and help available on this website. Wagner, if you don't mind, can you just put up the slide I had for it, because it has link to this documentation. Can you hear me? Wagner, Kent?
Sorry, I was not on the stage. Yes, so I'm sharing my screen now, and adding that. Should give me 1 minute. Yeah, just jumping between the machines. Add to stage, and there we go. So that's what you're looking for, right?
Exactly, yeah. So just wanted to put this out there so that folks can catch up on through the documentation, for which I have this AKMS link here. And there is a blog post as well around this announcement from Azure OpenAI team. Please feel free to check that out. This was also covered in one of the build sessions done by OpenAI team. If you have attended build, or if you want to catch up on the recordings, please do that. And the MS Learn documentation that I just shared, everything about assistants can be also found here. So yeah, we are really excited to see how you use these capabilities and what kind of applications you build with them. The whole idea is that you should be able to leverage your existing business processes and business data and easily integrate and build intelligent apps on top of them. Yeah, so thank you.
Perfect. And I think it's time for the Q&A. Just let me move this to another page so you don't see Inception. Kent, we have any questions? I think I saw one early on that was not related to Logic Apps, or to what we're showing here, but was related to Logic Apps. this question here.
Yeah, that was the one that showed up.
Yeah. So the question from Ali is, can we do development of logic apps in VS Code using VNet integration? So from my point of view, when you implement VNet integration in the portal, what you're doing is connecting that instance to your network, right? If you wanted to do the same with VS Code, the only thing you needed to do is making sure that the VS Code instance is connected to that virtual network. That means that either you're going to be running that using a VM inside of that network, or if you're on premises, if your computer is connected to that network, you'll be able to access that. You don't need to configure that explicitly when you're running VS Code, because in theory, you're already inside that network. Ali, let me know if that answer your question. Otherwise, we can ping one of us on Twitter or LinkedIn, and then kind of discuss that a little bit more. Apart from that, I think there was like a lot of good feedback on the things that we're showing. Like Michael Sands was quite excited about news on deployment. He highly recommends integrate. So if you didn't go yet, please do. And Sandro, that was our MVP expert on Data Mapper, is really happy with some of those updates. Seems like got the Sandro Pereira seal of approval. And Juliano Custodio also said there is like a lot of good news today. So it's good. Share share that with your team, with your peers, right? So they can see the news as well. And make sure that if you wanted to take a look at the full demo of that OpenAI, that you catch up on that break 101 that Divya shared. With that, unless there is any other questions, I think that's it for today. All right. So see you next month, right? The same Logic Apps channel, same Logic Apps time.